Hi, everybody, and thank you for joining us for our first podcast. So, I'm Kate, and I'm working with Big Thinking Publishing to get my first two children's books out into the world through a self-publishing route. I also have a book that is being published through Pegasus, and this podcast over the next few sessions will talk through the journey that I've gone on from starting with ideas about writing to actually getting them written down and to finally getting them in book format. And that journey should end, certainly for the two self-published ones, by around April, May time. So it is very exciting. So as I said, there's a few different routes to go down when you are looking at publishing your book. There is the traditional route, which goes through a publisher, and you might have come across the term the Big Five, and these are big publishing companies that you tend to need an agent if you're going to get very far. There's also a hybrid publishing route, which is what I am doing with Pegasus. So they share a bit of the cost and I share a bit of the cost, and they provide me with an illustrator and all the book formatting and how it all goes together, and they will work on marketing that as well. And then there is the self-publishing route, of which I'm a huge fan because it's been a really exciting journey from talking to illustrators and designers to get my idea of what I want my books to look like out into the world exactly as I imagine them. So over the next few sessions, we'll look a little bit into all three of those and what that means, and then perhaps you can decide which you think the best route is for your own stories. So for a lot of us, the writing is the really fun part. It's where we let our imaginations out to play and we can create entire new worlds for ourselves to disappear into for a little while. But it's what I've found the most difficult is what happens after you've finished, when your pen goes down for the final time or you type your last full stop. It's what happens then and what's the process from that point of writing your story and writing your book to getting it ready to go out into the world and hopefully for people to buy it. So again, over the next few sessions of these podcasts, we're going to look at those different stages. So we're going to look at editing and what that means, and there's lots of different types of editing, which I didn't realize when I started this journey. And then we'll go on to thinking about publicizing and creating sort of a bit of a stir around your work before it even hits the shelves. We'll also look at book design and how you get your manuscript from Word or whatever platform you use to write into a format that's able to be printed as a book. And there's all sorts of programs. There's Ingram Spark and Amazon KDP help with all of that formatting. So we're going to look at a lot of things over the next few weeks that will hopefully break down the process of once you've finished, what happens then and what happens next. So how do you go about choosing an editor and finding an editor that's right for you and your project? So we've got our finished manuscript, we've self-edited, we've proofread it, we've got it in the best shape it can possibly be. And that's when we need to start finding a professional to help us with the next stage of the journey. So there's various different places you can look for an editor. You could just put a shout out on social media, but you will get an inbox full of people offering you services that you'd be taking a risk on. There are places like Fiverr that I know a lot of people use to source other professionals to help them. And then there is my personal favorite, which is Readsy Marketplace. I'm just going to add in a little screen share here so you can see Readsy Marketplace and what it is. Now, it's absolutely free to join, and not only is it sort of a wealth of information about different types of things you can do with your marketing and your publicity, and it gives you guides there on different types of publishing, but it also acts as a marketplace for professionals. So you post the job that you want. So you say, I want an editor for a young adult fantasy novel, and then it comes up with a list of editors that specialize in that field. You select them and you send your brief to them, and then they will read through your brief, and then you usually will open conversation and dialogue as to what you're specifically looking for with an editor. And we're going to talk a little bit more about the different types of editor and the different types of editing that you can have, and that will work towards making your manuscript the best possible manuscript it can be, whether you're going for a traditional publisher or whether you're going to self-publish. Okay, so in this section, we're going to look at the different types of editor that are available to help you with your manuscript and to help you get your work to the best possible version of itself that it can be ready for publishing. So I've popped up on the screen a table that I've got from reading. I'll put the link down below, because I think this is really easy and clear to understand about the different types of editor that are available to you. So if you are just starting out writing your book and you're a bit unsure, or there's things you're not too clear about, then you might want to think about hiring a book coach who can work with you for the whole of your project, sort of guiding you and giving you ideas as to sort of format and structure for your work. But if we take it that by this stage you've got your finished manuscript that you've self-edited yourself, so what do we do with it then? So you have got some options that are available to you. So a developmental editor will look at your work as a big picture. They'll look at your character and your character development. They will look at, if you're in a fantasy world, sort of your world building. They will look to make sure that what you have in your head as a writer is coming across to your readers. And I think sometimes that can be a little bit difficult, because the world that we are creating is so clear in our heads as writers that sometimes we miss giving out the important information because we think it's obvious. So I've had some really good developmental editors where they've taken my work and gone, well, hang on a minute, where does that come from, or why is that there? And it's just that extra pair of eyes on it to make sure that your story is clear, that your characters are developing, that your continuity is there from the beginning to the end. So once you have had your developmental edit, you're back in the stage of redrafting and self-editing again before you might want to pass it back to them. It depends how long you employ them for. Or you might want to go on to a copy edit, which is a little bit more in-depth, sort of a line-by-line look at your work. So rather than the bigger picture of a developmental edit, this will go into the very fine details of your story. And that can be really useful, again, in sort of helping you to nail down any inconsistencies and to make sure that your work is conveying the story that you have in your head. And then the final stage of editing is the proofreading. And I have proofread so many books and so many sort of articles for people, and that time and time again you still find mistakes even after the 8th or 9th time that you've read it through. So proofreading is really important, and it is something you can do yourself, and it's something you can ask other people to do and help to sort of do that for you if you didn't want to hire somebody. But I would recommend a professional proofreader, because they know what they're looking for, and the tiniest little errors will be picked up, and rather picked up at this stage than when your book's committed to print. And if you are going to e-publish your book, then it will be your readers that find your mistakes, and I do think that can a little bit undermine credibility as an author if there's lots of mistakes still in your work at this stage. So that's a brief overview of editing. I'm going to put the link down below to the Reezy website, because there's a lot more detail on there that will really help. And again, a general Google search will tell you lots of information about the different types of editing, so that you can work out which one is appropriate for you. So that's it. Thank you for joining us for episode 1, what happens after you put down your pen. Episode 2, we'll be looking at the 3 different types of publishing in a little bit more detail. We'll also be thinking about how you can go about approaching traditional publishers and thinking about query letters to agents and publishers as well. And then we will look at the hybrid and vanity publishers. That there's lots of pros and cons, I think, and if you have a look on the internet, you'll get people who are advocates for both sides. And then a little bit more about the self-publishing route and what to expect once you have your work edited. So it's been really nice. Please do like and subscribe, and if there is anything else you'd like to know, or if there's any questions and things that we haven't covered today, please do pop them down in the comments and I will respond. So on behalf of myself and Big Thinking Publishing, thanks for joining us, and we'll see you soon.